Good afternoon and welcome to the webinar. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us. Before we get started, I just want to cover a few housekeeping items. This webinar is produced by the Child Abuse Prevention Council of Contra Costa County and the Child Abuse Training and Technical Assistance Center, a project of the Center for Innovation and Resources. For those of you who can hear me, this might seem obvious, but I just want to remind everyone to turn on their speakers in order to hear the presentation. Use the Q&A feature to ask the presenter any questions that you may have. We will leave time at the end of the presentation for Charlie to answer questions. Please keep in mind we may not be able to get to all of them. The chat panel is where you can ask tech support questions. We will answer those immediately in this panel. Now I'd like to introduce our presenter. Charlie Appelstein is a nationally prominent youth care specialist and author whose primary focus is on teaching positive, strength-based theories and techniques to professionals who guide at-risk children and youth. As president of Appelstein Training Resources, LLC, Charlie trains and consults throughout the U.S. as well as internationally with treatment facilities, foster care and adoption agencies, parent groups, schools, and juvenile justice programs. He has authored 3 youth care books that are widely used in the field, including No Such Thing as a Bad Kid, Understanding and Responding to Kids with Emotional and Behavioral Challenges Using a Positive, Strength-Based Approach. Charlie lives in southern New Hampshire with his wife and daughter. Charlie's strength-based approach delivers a message of hope and possibility to our most vulnerable youth and those who shape and influence their lives. Now, if you'll bear with me just a moment, I'll pass controls over to Charlie.
All righty. All right. Hey, welcome to this webinar. I'm really excited to be here from rainy Salem, New Hampshire. I have thunderstorms outside, so I'm hoping we don't lose power today because I got a lot of good stuff to talk to you about. So I titled today's webinar, and I'm going to share screen right now so I can bring it up. All right, here we go. I titled today, ooh, I'm going to put my video on here. Let me get my chat board down here. I titled today's webinar, No Such Thing as a Bad Kid, Understanding and Responding to Kids with Emotional Behavior Challenges Using a Positive, Trauma-Informed, Strength-Based Approach. Let me say something as kind of a preamble to today. I've been working with kids for about 42 years. I worked a lot in residential treatment. I've consulted in foster care. For the last 20 years, I've been a consultant to 3 or 4 major school districts. And anytime there's a kid really acting out, they call me and they don't care when I come, what I do, as long as I get the kid behaving. I've also taken over juvenile detention centers that are out of control. So I've done a lot in my last 42 years. I've also written some books. I'm actually very guilty about this book, No Such Thing as a Bad Kid, which she just mentioned. Very guilty about this book because I wrote it before I became a parent. My next book is There's Only One Bad Kid, mine. Only kid, great kid. So I've been around, I've been doing this a lot of years. And yesterday I read a lot of your questions that you sent in. And understandably, a lot of your questions were about specific behaviors. What if a kid does this? What if a kid does this? What if they're oppositional? What if they lie? What if they have tantrums? What I'm going to tell you right now is that in the next hour and a half, I'm going to give you and explain an approach with lots of strategies that really reduces behavior dramatically. Rather than single out these certain behaviors, I'm going to give you strategies and principles and an approach that is literally revolutionizing the way we deal with kids around the whole world. And it's called using a positive, strength-based approach. And it's backed up by some of the most cutting-edge research on neuroscience. When people really adapt this approach, use all these principles that I'll be giving you, behavior often disappears. It reduces dramatically. This book, No Such Thing as a Bad Kid, it's a revision. The first book came out in 1998. It was about 286 pages. This book is about 497 pages. It took me 3 years to rewrite it. Finally came out a few years back. 2 months before the new version was going to be released, I put a note on LinkedIn that after 3 years of rewriting, the new version is finally coming out. I got an email within a week from a director of a big residential program. He said, when we got your original book 10 years ago, we were doing 300 physical restraints a year. After 6 months, we were down to 0 and have not had a restraint in 5-10 years. It wasn't the specific behaviors that I addressed, it was the approach that brought the restraints down from 300 to 0. So what you're going to get from me, and again, at the end, I will answer questions about specific behaviors, but also by the end, I hope I have you on board that when you do the stuff I'm talking about today, and I'll give you principles, but some very specific ways to use this approach, it will literally shape the way you do your business, the way you deal with kids for the rest of your life. That's been my goal. All right. So I titled today's seminar, No Such Thing as a Bad Kid, Understanding and Responding to Kids with Emotional Behavior Challenges Using a Positive Trauma-Informed Strength-Based Approach. So what is this amazing approach? Here's a simple definition I've cobbled together over the years of strength-based practice. Strength-based practice is an emerging approach to guiding kids, and in particular, those with emotional behavior challenges, that is exceptionally positive and inspiring. Its focus on strength building rather than flaw-fixing, what kids do right versus what they do wrong. It begins with the belief that all young people have or could develop strengths and use past successes to curb problem behavior, enhance academic and social functioning. Now, every time I read this definition, I laugh a little about the line, what kids do right. Many years ago, I was doing a foster parent training. And about a week later, I got an email from a foster mother, veteran foster mother. And she says, you know, Charlie, I was driving home from your training and I was feeling very guilty, very guilty. You said to focus on what the kids do right. I focus on what they do wrong. And I've been particularly bad to the 14-year-old kid in my house. He has a terrible habit of never closing a door, particularly the garage door. And we don't live in a good part of town. So I'm always yelling at him, close the friggin' door. Hey, the door's, hey, go close that door. Hey, you left it. Oh my God, I'm ruthless to this kid. Always picking up what he does wrong, particularly the garage door. So I said, I gotta change. So 2 days after your training, I'm in the car, the motor's running. I'm waiting for the kid to come out through the garage to take him to an appointment. I know he's gonna go through the garage and I know he's not gonna close the door. And that's exactly what happened. He gets in the front seat. I take a deep breath and I look at him and I go, Roger? And he goes, yeah. I love the way you open the door, son. I love the way you open the door. And he looked at me kind of shocked and he says, but I guess I don't close them so good. She says, I don't care about that anymore. I like the way you open the door. I like the way you open the door. I'm not kidding you. I got an email about a year later, almost to that date, saying Roger has closed every door for a year. It's one of my favorite anecdotes of all time because it's so metaphorical. When you focus on what kids do right, when you bring great positivity into a home, kids start behaving a lot better. They actually start using more parts of their brain. It's amazing. And as I mentioned to you in the introduction, this positive strength-based stuff I'm giving you, it is backed up by some of the most cutting-edge research in neuroscience. And here is some of that research to kind of push you even more so in this direction, because you can't refute using this stuff anymore. This research I'm quoting right now was written by a guy named Sean Acker. Acker wrote a great book called The Happiness Advantage. It's referenced in your handout. You were sent my handout, which is 50 pages. It has a lot more material than I'm going to cover in an hour and a half. Really dissect that handout. It has some great stuff in there. So this is in the handout. This is what Acker wrote a great book, Happiness Advantage. Acker studies happiness for a living and its effect on people. Here's some research that he's done that literally supports the whole approach I'm teaching you today. Recent research shows that the broadening effect, how positive emotions broaden the amount of possibilities we process, making us more thoughtful, creative, and open to new ideas, is actually biological. Positive emotions flood our brains with dopamine and serotonin, chemicals that not only make us feel good, but dial up the learning centers of our brains to higher levels. Now, here's my favorite paragraph in the world. Positive emotions help humans to organize new information, keep that information in the brain longer, and retrieve it faster later on. And they enable us to make and sustain more neural connections, which allows us to think more quickly and creatively, become more skilled at complex analysis and problem solving, and see and invent new ways of doing things. Think about the behaviors you send to me. Think about the behaviors your kids are doing every day in your homes, on your caseloads. And then look at that paragraph. If you use the approach, if you use the strategies I'm touting today, some of that stuff goes away. They start using parts of the brain they've never used before, and they start functioning better. Brain change, once thought impossible, is now a well-known fact, one that is supported by some of the most cutting-edge research in neuroscience. And let me say one more thing about behavior. And I'll probably say this 5 times today. The biggest crock in the world is that kids like acting out. There could be no more stupid comment in the history of the world than that comment. Kids like acting out. I've had teachers say, oh, he likes being sent to the office. He gets to avoid the work. Principal's secretary's nice to him, lets him go in the candy jar. I've had foster parents say, oh, he likes being rude to me, likes running away, likes doing drugs, likes being oppositional, likes having tantrums. No, they don't. No, they don't. If you could put truth serum into any troubled kid and say, who would you rather be? You the one who's tantruming, you the one who's running away, you the one who's doing drugs, you the one who's being oppositional, or that kid over there who has lots of friends, a wonderful family life, and a great future ahead of her. Who would you rather be? There's no kid in the world that would pick themselves. There was no kid. They don't like what they're doing. They're doing the best they can based on the cards they were dealt. They would love to be a happier kid. They would love to be the kid who's not being oppositional, that stuff. You know, this is their wiring. This is their history. Behavior is always a message and will always be a message. Anytime you have a kid in your home on your caseload who's acting out, they're sending you a message. Help me out here. I don't like this. I may be getting a visceral high. Yes, it may make me feel good temporarily to tell you off, to refuse to do something, to do drugs, to be oppositional. Yeah, maybe it gets me, but I don't like being that person. I'd rather be the happier person. And so when you do the stuff I'm talking about today, you could get at that happier person. You know, this strength-based stuff I'm giving you, it's as much neurological as psychological. As you can see here, when you get more positive with kids using the strategies I'm talking about, they literally start using more parts of the brain. They start creating new neural pathways. Serotonin and those kind of drugs get released in their head when they're feeling more positive. This stuff I'm giving you today is really as much neurological as it is psychological. And it's being used by people all over the world now with dramatic results. So I've given you a definition. I've given you the science that backs it up. But let me tell you, I think the whole strength-based approach is really about 2 words, attitude and actions. It starts with the attitude you convey to every kid from the second you meet that kid and then forever that says, I believe in you. I think you're one amazing kid. You're going to make it with me. You're going to make it in life. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be part of your journey. Now let's get going. And everything you do with these kids has to be an extension of that attitude. It says, boy, do I look forward to seeing you. You're going to make it in my house. You're going to make it on my caseload. Let's get going. And why do you think that's so important? In my 42 years in the business, it is clear to me that is the most singularly important thing any one of you can bestow on a tough kid, the sense that you can't wait to see the kid every day. You believe in the kid unconditionally, and you just know that kid is going to be successful with you and forever. Why is that so important? Anybody want to throw something down on the chat board? I do look at the chat board a lot. I can't get to the question and answer now because I can't talk and do those. Anybody, why is that so important to have such a positive, I believe in you attitude? It is by far the most singularly important thing any one of you can bestow on a kid. We believe what people tell us, yes. It models positivity, which we want them to do. You want them to be more positive, you be more positive. That somebody cares, someone provides hope. That's my big punchline. These are great answers. These are great answers. Let me expound on that. When you get excited to see kids every day, Uh, one of the major reasons that's so important is you make them feel good. And when they feel good, as I've just outlined, literally chemicals get released in the brain. They start using more of the brain than they ever used before. Now when a kid is struggling, is getting frustrated, wants to run away, they can use parts of their brain to problem solve that they weren't using before when the environment wasn't as positive. So when you have this kind of attitude, it makes them feel good, which releases chemicals. So it's neurological. And when you get kids feeling good on a regular basis because of how you're greeting them, how you're dealing with them, the techniques you're using, obviously what's happening is you're building great relationships. And almost all the research now on discipline, whether in a home, in a school, in a treatment center, is all saying the same thing. If you want kids to behave better, build great relationships. It's not about all the rules and rewards and consequences and structure. It's almost all about relationship. It's almost all about relationship. I heard James Garbarino speak a few years ago. Garbarino is one of the world's foremost experts on kids and violence. He's written like 30 books. I met him. He's a wonderful guy. He got in front of a group of 1,000 people in Las Vegas and said, we can now predict with almost 100% certainty whether a tough teenager with a history of aggression will commit another act of aggression when he or she enters the high school in the fall. If we can look into this kid's life at any moment while they're at the school and see this one factor present, we don't worry about the kid. What do you think that is? You got a tough kid entering your local high school in September. He has a history of aggression. 3 months later, you look into his life at the school, you see this factor, and you go, we're all set, he's got to be fine. What do you think that is? Anybody have an idea? Want to throw it on the chat board? A positive adult relationship, Janet says. Yes. Yes. What Galvarino said, I love the way he framed it, this highfalutin academic. He says, if a tough teenager with a history of aggression can wake up every day knowing there's at least one adult at the school who thinks I'm terrific, the odds of that kid doing something serious go down about zero. Zero. You got to make sure every kid whose life you touch wakes up every day thinking this social worker, this parent, this grandparent, they can't wait to see me. You know, I think I've worked with around 250 kids over the last 20, 25 years of my school consultation jobs. 250 of the most acting out kids in 3 different school systems. I would bet $1 million, putting my life on the line, that every one of those kids woke up every day thinking, Mr. Appelstein can't wait to see me. I have to be his favorite kid. Now, is that true? Not even close. I've had some kids who were really tough to see, but it didn't matter. Didn't matter. Anytime I drive in to see kids, I see myself as a pie. I'm a big metaphor guy. And I make sure every kid gets an equal slice. Because as it says in my first book, The Gus Chronicles, Reflections from an Abused Kid, where I made up a 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid and had him write about what it's like to be abused, neglected, living in an out-of-home placement. And I made him really smart so he could be reflective. What Gus writes is the kid who's pushing you away the most is always the one who needs you the most. So if I have a kid who's really tough to see, I think, what must be going on in his head? What's happened in his life to push me away? Now you help that kid. You help that kid. You're going to make sure every single kid wakes up every day thinking, this lady, this guy can't wait to see me. You know, it's all about relationship. All about relationship. Now, I'm going to deviate a little bit in today's training because I only have an hour and a half. So I'm going to push to the forward some stuff I might do later in the training. And I'm going to talk to you now about some really cool ways to build relationship with kids, to really get in their heads, to be indelibly ensconced in that brain so they think of you and they feel good and those chemicals go off. You know, a couple things I do when I meet a kid for the first time, because again, my thing is all about relationship. It's not dealing with behavior, it's preventing behavior. And I know we could do that, and I've seen it for 42 years by building great relationships, changing the way these kids think about themselves. First time I meet a kid or a group, I always tell them the same thing. They got to know something about me and the group here. We believe there's no such thing as a bad kid or bad parent, just bad luck, bad choices. You got to give kids permission to love their biological family, even if they did bad things, because they still love that family. You know, your parents maybe made some bad choices. They probably feel terrible about it. Good people make bad choices. Maybe they had some bad luck growing up too. You've got to give permission for kids to love their family and understand and make sense of it. As it says in the Gus Chronicles, the job of family work is to kind of set the record straight. There aren't bad people out there. There are bad choices, but there are no bad. Kids can't say forward to life. They can't say hello to life unless they make sense of the past. So I always start there. And by the way, there's nothing I'll mention today that doesn't apply to the parents of the kids you're dealing with. You treat them with a great love and respect. You build them up, same kind of stuff. Every technique I can give you for a kid, I would give you for an adult, same stuff. Then the next thing I do with every kid right away is talk train. Now again, I get referred to really tough kids. That's been my life. I work with really tough kids. First thing I do is I do the no such thing. Then I always say to every kid, every group, you are like a train, a big, powerful train. But you got a big engine and you're going great places, but right now you're a little off track. You got some wheels spinning, steams, bellowing, oil sipping all over. We got to get you back on track, that's all. Back on track, Jack. Everybody, come on, give me one of these. Back on track, Jack. You know, my daughter, when she was 4 years old, she come up to me, I know, Dad, I know, yeah, train's on track. No playground till we get this train back on track. You're a foster parent or whatever, you got a bunch of kids in your house. Guys, we got some wheels spinning, oil sipping. We're not going out tonight. We're not doing anything until we get this train back on track. Back on track, you say it, Jack. Back on track, come on, let me hear you, Jack. You know, toughest kid, I've been referred to my school consultation job. Actually, the second toughest kid was this 7 or 8 year old. He was totally out of control, very messy home life I had to work on. They were this close to putting him in a residential school. They asked me to start working on him, and right away I did my normal positive start, the no such thing as a bad kid or parent. And right away, gave him the train. Told him, you're a big, powerful train, but right now you're off track. Your family is too. We're going to get you back on track. Back on track, Jack. And then, you know, and then I had some behavior charts that were all train tracks. Getting back on track chart. If he could just breathe properly, he got a tie in the track. Well, it worked. All this positive stuff worked. He stopped being so oppositional. He stopped tantrum. He stopped doing all the behaviors you said, what do we do about? And he got himself back on track every year better than the year before. By the time he was in 6th grade, he was doing so much better, I didn't need to see him anymore. In fact, the guidance staff from the middle school emailed me in September of 6th grade and said, look, nice job. He's doing okay. He has hiccups now and then, but you don't need to see him on a weekly basis anymore. Why don't you take him out one last time and celebrates? You know, so I got a hold of his mother and she allowed me to take him out for a pizza for our final visit after 3 or 4 years. It was great. We did some wonderful reminiscing. I drove him home, and it was the last time I ever saw him. Right before we got to his house, he looked at me, he says, hey, Mr. A. I go, yeah. He says, I've been thinking a lot about that train thing you've been talking about all these years. Really? I didn't think a 13, 14-year-old thought much about trains. I said, well, what have you been thinking about? He says, I've been thinking that when you and everyone else started working with me, you put a lot of coal in my engine. But when the coal ran out, I'd act out. He says, I've been thinking lately, maybe it's time for me to put the coal in. Is that one of the greatest things you ever heard in your darn life? Oh my God, I dropped him off. I flew to the hobby shop near my house and I bought this train for $100. Now it'll cost you $200. Now when I meet a kid for the first time, I say, that's you, girl, that's you, you're going somewhere. But right now you got some wheels spinning, you know, oil sipping. We just got to get you back on track, you know, back on track, I want to hear you. Jack, back on track, Jack, you know. When I meet with kids for the first time, older and younger kids, I go, did you bring the train, Mr. A? You bring the train? You know, I walk through schools, treatment centers with a 10-pound bag. I see a kid down the hallway. Hey, Norma Cadona, heard about the quiz yesterday, 9 out of 10. You're bringing that train to the station, girl. I love it. You know, and if it's someone really doing good, Scott Walker, hey, you got a B+ on the English. I'm loving it, brother. You're the man. You are the man. I don't know how you can be a foster parent or caseworker without a hat, without this stuff. I love this stuff, you know, and you get identified with this stuff. So this guy really believes in me. Much better going to bed thinking, so I'm a little off track. You know, you don't want to use words like rude, manipulative, lazy, attention sink, spacey. Get rid of those. That's what we call pejorative adjectives. I don't know if I'll get to this in today's training. That's why I'm bringing it up today. There's actually a term called stereotype myth. It says if a kid hears a negative adjective one too many times, they literally take it on, they stop trying. Red Pollard was a jockey of Seabiscuit. You think he would have had a pretty good life. Hey, he was a California horse. You think he would have had a pretty good life riding Seabiscuit to international fame. No, he battled alcoholism his whole adult life and died much younger than he should have. According to his daughter, who was interviewed on PBS a few years ago, she said, we know what happened to my father. when he was a young kid, the whole country was going through a depression. We're going through a pandemic. And one of his teachers was really out of sorts and got mad at him one day and said, "Pollard, you're a loser, and you'll always be a loser." His daughter said those words haunted him for the rest of his life. "Sticks and stones will break your bones. Names will never hurt you. That's a crock. Throw a stick at me and break my arm. It'll heal in a month or two." But if you're a foster parent, a caseworker, you call me spacey, lazy, you call me an attention seeker, you call me rude, you call me oppositional or defiant, that may stick and I may never get past it. If you need to use negative adjectives, put the word choose. When you do this and this and this, you're choosing to manipulate me and mom, but maybe that's your way of getting some control. Maybe you haven't had enough control. Probably the greatest technique, and this is in your packet, I just don't know if I'll have time to get to it, is what we call reframing. It's where you take a negative behavior, turn it positive. I had a kid who was very rude, a very neglected kid. He was at my residential center, but we didn't use the R word. My staff couldn't use those words unless they put the word choose in front of it. Hey, when you do this and this, I think you're choosing to be rude. Maybe that's your way of boom, 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 boom. So we didn't use those words because they take them on unless you put the word choose. But he was very rude, but he had a lot of strengths, and he could make it at our high school. He was smart. I'll never forget, he came back from high school one day. He says, "Guess what, Charlie?" I said, "What, Jay?" He said, "The secretary at Nashua High told me today I'm the first kid in 30 years to get under her skin." I said, "Jay, that's fantastic. Think about that. For 30 years, kids were booted out of class. They go down to the office. They provoke this little woman, and you're the only one in 30 years to get under her skin." I said, "Wow, what an amazing ability you have to affect people." I said, "The problem is this great talent of yours is getting you in trouble, hurting people's feelings. We got to think of a way for you to use this skill that will help the world, help people." So we discussed it for a while. We figured out he'd be a great talk show host. People love him or hate him, but they'd have to tune him in. He walks away feeling great about himself, knowing he has this strength, but he's got to use it on the radio. Kid swears, "Hey, you're very expressive. You got words I never heard before. I'm going to use some of them at the Raider game. But if you use it in school, in the home, it gets you in trouble. It doesn't make people feel good. You want to swear, you're good at it. Save it for me, one-on-one. You could do it here." In almost any negative behavior, you find the refrain. Kids are oppositional, defiant. Hey, you're good at protecting yourself. If you don't try things, you don't get involved, you can't get hurt, and who can blame you? But sometimes people could overdo protectiveness. How about just give me a little bit, give me a little bit. There's really no greater technique than reframing. And as you can see, all of this stuff I'm giving you, just in the little bit we started, it's all about changing the way kids think about themselves. And when you do that, they don't act out as much. Yeah. Now, here's one of my favorite things to talk about. Tell me, is this the cutest little baby you ever saw in your life? Come on, I look at that picture, I go, oh my God. This is a really cool thing to talk about. This is called seeing is believing versus believing is seeing. Is it not true that every one of you out there who deals with kids uses standard behavior management? Is that not true? Meaning when the kid enters in your life, you basically let them know, if you behave well in my home, if you behave well while I'm working with you, good things are going to happen. If you don't, it ain't going to be much fun. Is it not true? Let me have a message. Is it not true that every one of you out there, to a certain extent, uses standard behavior management? You know, you basically let kids know when they enter your life, if you behave well, we treat you really great. If you don't, it really ain't much fun. Is that anybody want? True. Thank you, Yasina. Thank you. And I'm not saying you do it wrong, but that's pretty much how schools and agencies and homes work. I have nothing against standard behavior management, but I think it's overdone, particularly for some of your kids. And so standard behavior management, as you see the slide, I call it believing is seeing. Standard behavioral management says, if you do well, we treat you great. If you don't, it ain't much fun. So basically that says, my love for you, my affection for you is conditional. If you want me to treat you good, you have to behave well. And if you don't, I'm not going to treat you that. That's standard behavior management. But I think that's overdone. I would love for you, based on the kids you have, and so that's what I call believing is seeing. We believe in you when we see you doing well. That's standard behavior management. I would rather you use a little bit more seeing is believing, which says you do not have to behave well in my home. You do not have to behave well in my caseload for me to treat you great. You know, This is really counterintuitive stuff. Let me give you an example of seeing is believing. My first job in residential treatment was on a girls' unit. There were 13 girls aged 6 to 16, all traumatized, seriously acting out kids. My supervisor, Ellen, and I, we worked every Friday from noon to midnight, and she did the awake overnight. Every now and then, Ellen would call me up on Friday morning and say, bring your suit in. And I know what she was going to do. She was going to bring in a gourmet meal, her tablecloth, china, flowers. She was going to dress up, made me dress up. She would cook this great gourmet meal. All the girls would come back from the special ed school at 2:30. They'd see Ellen and I dressed to the hilt. They'd see the tablecloth, china, flowers. They'd smell the aroma. What would the kids ask us right away? Anybody know? What would the kids ask us right away when they saw this? They come back and they see Ellen and I dressed up. They see the tablecloth. Why did you do this? Close, Janet. Not why. You know, not what. WH is right. Not what, not why. Who? Who's coming to dinner? Okay, who's coming? Who's this for? Diana. What did we answer, Diana? What did we answer? Who's this for? Martha says, who's coming for dinner? Who's coming for dinner? What would Ellen and I say? For you. You are. Well, why are you treating us so special? Why are you treating us so special? Because you are. It didn't matter if Thursday night was a zoo. If Friday morning 2 kids got restrained, they got it unconditionally. That's seeing is believing. They did not have to behave well for us to treat them great. And I would bet $1 million that those girls went to bed those nights thinking, this is the greatest darn place I've ever been to in my life. They don't even care if you act out here. They just love kids. They just love kids here. And you don't think that motivates kids to behave better the next day? You don't think that builds great relationships? Again, you could talk about oppositional. You could talk about defiance. You could talk about tantrums, rudeness, all that stuff. It's all coming from somewhere. You know, you build great relationships. You change the way these kids think, and they don't want to act out as much. They don't want to act out as much. This kid walks into your program, you're home tomorrow. Hey, seeing is believing. Hey, you're the man, Butch. We're excited that you're here. That would be seeing is believing. Believing is seeing is we'll treat you nicely once you put that slingshot down, lose some weight, and get rid of that ridiculous hat. Now, let me throw in one more bit of support for seeing is believing. And this is why I have the baby picture. And I'd like to get your answer on the chat board. Is it not true? And I'm a strong developmentalist. Is it not true that almost every tough kid you deal with probably didn't get it good enough in the early years of life? True or not? Absolutely. Stephan, true. So, okay. And that goes for almost every tough kid I've ever worked with. Probably didn't get it good enough in the early years of life. Now let's go back to those early years of life. If you go into the home of anyone who has a 1, 2, or 3-year-old, what do you see everywhere? Let's see it on the chat board. You walk into the home of someone who has a 1, 2, or 3-year-old, what do you see? Toys, games are all over the place. Did they have to earn them? Did the 1 or 2-year-old have to earn those toys, or did they get no? They got them unconditionally. You know, you don't say to a little kid, you know, if you poop a little less today, I'll give you a big sticker. Get 3 stickers and you can get that binky you've been looking at Target. No matter how dorky your 2-year-old is, they just get it unconditionally. That's what they need. That's the developmental phase. Well, I would argue, and I think you've already agreed, that the 17-year-old in your house, the 15-year-old, the 10-year-old, that kid didn't get that unconditional love in those early years, and they still need it. So that's where seeing is believing comes from. So how does this apply to you? Say you got a kid who's really oppositional, a kid who's having tantrums, a kid who's any of those behaviors you talk about. Take, do something fun with the kid. Take them out for pizza. Take the kid for a ride. Do something fun. Buy them their favorite food or something. Why are you being so nice to me? Why are you being so nice to me? I was so rude to you yesterday. I did this. What? You think how you behave has anything to do with how much I care about you? You've been off track. You've been going through a rough time. This pandemic's bringing everybody down. I thought you could use a shot in the arm. Kid will remember that long after any reward and consequences. I came up with a technique years ago called a deliberate act of kindness, not a random act of kindness, a deliberate act of kindness. And let me tell you where this came from. Up in Canada, they don't have residential centers the way they do in the States. They have more group homes. They put like 4 kids to a group home, which is really a good model. I don't like big groups of kids in these centers, but these are tough kids. So I was training in Edmonton, Alberta, many years ago. Big group home complex. Right before I left, the director approached me and said, "Would you go visit our most difficult group home before you leave tomorrow?" I said, "Sure, what's going on?" He says, "Oh, it's terrible. We have 4 girls living there. 3 of them are 17 years old, and they run away every night into downtown Edmonton and prostitute themselves and then come back the next morning. The other girl there is 13, and she's totally intimidated by these 3 kids. The staff are all very young, and they're intimidated. We don't know what to do. We don't want to discharge your kid, but it's really untenable. Would you take a look tomorrow and give us some thoughts?" I said, "Sure." I'll never forget, I drove over to that house the next morning. The 3 girls, the 17-year-olds, were sitting on a cut-up stump to the left in the front yard. They gave me this kind of dirty look as I walked into the house. When I got into the house, the young staff member and the 13-year-old, they were like shaking. They were so fragile. They were like tears in their eyes. It was awful. So we talked for a little while. Then the staff member said, "Look, why don't we walk to the local convenience store? It's 2 blocks down. I don't know if the other girls will come, but let's just get out of the house." I said, "Fine." So me, the 13-year-old, and the staff, we start walking to the convenience store. The 3 girls follow us. We get into the store. I notice the 3 girls outside kind of flirting and stuff. And one of them comes in and stands in front of a potato chip stand. I rush over. I go, "Would you like a bag of chips?" He said, "Yeah, but I got no money." He says, "I got lots of money. It's Canadian funny money. Let me buy you some chips. I can't even use them when I go back to the States. Let me buy you a bag of chips." She goes, "Really?" "Yeah. In fact, get your buddies. I'll buy them chips too." She goes, "Really?" "Yeah." So they come in. I say, "Get big chips. Take advantage of the old guy from the States." Then they each had 3 bags. I said, "Now you got to wash it down. There's a big Slurpee machine over there. Go get the biggest drink. Come on, have some fun." They go, "Really?" "Yeah." We walk back to the group home like we're best friends. We're joking, laughing, all 6 of us. We get back to the group home, have one of the greatest talks I've ever had with kids in my life. The 3 girls start sobbing. They hate their life. They hate their pimps. They're in this cycle they can't get out of. The staff member was awesome in giving them tips and strategies and people they can contact. It was one of the most meaningful, heartfelt 60 minutes I've ever spent with kids. I went back home and I created this slide. Create a deliberate act of conduct. What did I do? I spent $20 on chips and look what it resulted. So every now and then, you got a tough kid, like a really tough behavior. Just do something nice with the kid. Have a pizza with the kid. Do something fun. Cook the meal. Do something fun. Now, if you did it all the time, yeah, that might reinforce negative behavior. But the danger is not doing it. And again, it meets that developmental need. And boy, can it build relationship. It's amazing. All right, what else do we do? What else do we do to build self-esteem, to build relationship with kids? As I started today and we'll end with today, this business of reducing behavior and making kids to be all that they can be, it's all about relationship. And one of the ways you build great relationship is by providing success opportunities. In the strength-based world, they have a really nice saying. They said adults with kids, particularly tough kids, should focus on doing versus understanding. I love this, doing versus understanding. What's this saying is, what's the message you send a tough kid if you say you need to be in therapy twice a week? What's the message? You can answer on the chat board. What's the message you're sending a kid if you say you need to be in therapy twice a week? They're broken. They're a hurting kid. I'd rather a kid go to a therapist once a week, but then be in guitar lessons, soccer, a cappella, tap dancing, I don't know, video, whatever. There's a great book out there, a booklet actually called Helping Traumatized Kids Learn. It says it categorically in there that when a traumatized kid, a really tough kid, feels good about herself in one area, it generalizes into all other areas. That's therapy. That's treatment. You want a kid to stop doing the behaviors you wrote yesterday? Get them doing things they're good at, they look forward, they're successful at. I've been telling people like you for about 1 million years now that the moment a tough kid wakes up in the morning to the moment he or she goes to bed, they should have multiple opportunities for success. And that often means you're creating things for them to be successful, you're modifying current things, or you're tapping on existing strengths. Let's talk about creating stuff. This is amazing, the dice roll. If I had more time, today, I would have had you bring dice today. But this is blowing people away. 2 little dice. I don't go anywhere. So many of the millions of people I've trained, they won't go anywhere without 2 dice. So you get dice, and maybe after dinner tonight, or next time you're working with a kid, it could even be online. Say, how many times can you roll the dice without getting doubles? The record today is 12. You could have the California record today is 12. What's the beauty of the dice roll? Anybody can roll the dice. So they roll for 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. They have a good chance of breaking the record. You make it very easy. And then you can put their name on the board. Kids love this. Why is this such a cool activity? Anybody can do it. It's what we call a universal opportunity for success. I was doing a training and consultation at a big special ed school last year. I was at the adolescent school. I heard a big 250-pound kid tantruming, screaming. I rushed to the quiet room, and 3 adults are trying to get this kid to go into the quiet room. And he's swearing, he's loud, he looks out of control. Now, I had met him, and I had done the dice with him. I pushed my way through a couple of the adults. I took my dice out, and I said, the record's 12. You want to go for it? In the middle of his tantrum, he grabs the dice, sits on the floor, starts rolling. I sit next to him. We start rolling for about 5, 10 minutes. He does 15. He breaks the record. He's back in class within 15 minutes. Why was that successful? Couple of reasons. One, what's the number one thing you do when kids are acting out? You distract them with something interesting. This was interesting. And he could be a winner. He can have the record. I did a keynote in Pascal, Washington last year. I got an email from a teacher a month later. It blew me away. She says, Charlie, I went to your keynote in Pascal. I want to thank you. One thing in particular I need to talk about is one of my students who's been labeled Tier 2 behavioral. Throughout the fall and winter, I was verbally and physically abused by this student. His abusive behavior became so violent, it carried over to the students, and he no longer attends my class, but is in a special behavior classroom in my building. After your keynote on Friday, I decided that it was time to start repairing the relationship in ways which he could feel successful. So I took dice to his classroom during my lunch break today and played the doubles challenge. Boy, was that a hit. He was so excited and ended up winning the challenge, 28 him, 16 me. So that meant during the half hour, at one point, he did 28 in a row. Every time you get doubles, you start over again. It's great to do this in groups so kids can win with someone else. It was 25 minutes of pure bliss, enjoyment, laughter, and relaxation. When I said I had to go, he wanted to call his mom immediately to tell her the good news that he won, and he did. He also recorded our scores on the whiteboard for the next time you visit me. His words. Thanks for helping me feel more confident reaching all my students. Within a month or 2, he's back in the classroom. This story epitomizes what I've been talking to you about all day. You can talk about behavior management up the wazoo. I could talk to you about specific behaviors, opposition, lying, this and that. Or you can play dice, gets feeling good, and they don't even want to act out anymore. You know, it's absolutely amazing. In your packet, I list a lot of cool things you can do with kids to build their self-esteem, to have successes. Again, if they have more successes with you, they're going to listen to you. They're going to pick up things more. They're not going to want to act out if they're feeling good. Success in one area generates other areas. So play a lot of card games. By the way, I love Blink. B-L-I-N-K. It's a great fast-paced game. Kids love Blink. You know, I love the dice game. I love Uno. And by the way, when you play games with kids, lose on purpose 90% of the time. Most of these kids have PhDs in losing. They need more wins. You know, when I play Uno with younger kids, I always use 2 decks, and I'm always straightening out the decks. Kid has no clue that I put wild cards down all the time. Kid has no clue. I walk into a treatment center, a school, anywhere. Kids say, did you play Uno with your daughter till 3 a.m.? Till 4 a.m., you're going down. They don't know I'm losing on purpose. As they get healthier, then I win. But I also let them cheat. If I'm one-on-one with a kid, I let him cheat. I tell the kid, wow, this is really hard. I thought you go, then I go, then you go, then I go. But it seems like you go 4 in a row, then I go 1. It's really hard when you think one thing's going to happen, but something else does. When you play a game with a kid, that's like play therapy. Is it not true that every troubled kid you work with was probably cheated out of a great childhood? So it's still there, it still resonates. When you play a game with a kid and they cheat, they're showing you their life. So don't be so quick to pick up on it. I never use the C word. Remember, I'm not a label guy. So you can bend the rules with me as long as it's one-on-one, but if we invite some other kids, I've had some amazing success with kids just through playing games with them like this and being a little more sophisticated, you know, karaoke and music. Hey, I have kazoo bands. Kid could play a kazoo. I buy violin cases, put the kazoos in there. So have birthdays, have a cappella. It's cool. Anybody could do that. You know, house records like longest dice roll without getting doubles, longest domino chain, you know, highest stack of playing cards. That's what you talk to kids about. You talk about the successes they're having. Volunteering, more and more is being written every day about the power of volunteering. It literally enhances the brain when kids are helping others. You know, sports, hiking, biking, martial arts, any kid could be successful in these. You know, fitness things. You want your kids exercising. A lot of these kids are sitting home in front of video games. You know, get them outside. Richard Louv wrote a great book, Last Child in the Woods. He cites children's disconnection from nature as a major reason why kids with mental health issues are often over-medicated. Get them outside. And also hobbies, find a kid a hobby. Every kid needs that one thing that they're great at. I was talking to you about sports and stuff. For about 30 years, I've been using lap charts with kids. Any kid can walk or run. I work with a lot of kids who are obese, overweight. They're anxious about exercising. Any kid can walk or run. So I create what I call the lap chart. I do this in schools, homes, treatment centers. So it could be just 2 minutes of walking equals 1 lap, or one time around the house or something is 1 lap. Anybody can walk or run. And then you can have like rewards. You know, at a psychiatric hospital I did this with, if a kid did 500 laps, they got a jogging superstar t-shirt. At another treatment center, if kids did a certain amount of laps, I took them to a 1 mile fun run. And this is what you talk about. You put your name there too. Now you get something you're talking about that any kid could be successful. Again, from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed, multiple opportunities for success. Then trumpet the success. Put things on walls, talk about that. And then make sure you know what every kid is good at. If you have a kid in your house who's really good with technology, pretend you know nothing about it. Have them teach you PowerPoint. Have them teach you something. Every kid I work with, I got to know their favorite foods, their favorite music groups, what they're really good at, and that's what I talk to them about. That builds relationship. So earlier I said, why is it so important to use a strength-based approach? We started with literally releases chemicals. It builds great relationships, and then I added to that by showing other ways you can really build great relationships by focusing on their strengths and stuff. Why else is it so important to be so positive and strength-based? Well, is it not true that every tough kid in your life entered your life riddled with self-doubt? Is that not an accurate statement? Yes or no? Let's see the chat board. You know, is it not true that every kid you work with struggles with self-doubt? How could they possibly not struggle with self-doubt? Well, Degas, the great artist, said self-doubt kills ability. Kind of impressed I know about Degas, the great French impressionist, born 1767, died 1833, created 1,500 impressionist paintings. Is that impressive or what? I don't know anything about Degas. I thought his name was Degas. I thought he was from Boston. But I got the ADD thing, so I'm always clicking, watching 8 shows at once. So a few years back, I'm clicking, and I stop on PBS. And they're doing these 1-hour bio pictures, the great artist of all time. So I guess I stumbled onto Degas. He paints the brown-tinged ballerina pictures you see in museums. From the scene I was watching for 18 seconds, he's talking to a little ballerina who's obviously struggling with her confidence. He says, self-doubt kills ability. I said, I'm going to remember that line. Strength-based practice says every single kid you work with has amazing ability, but they won't use it if they're riddled with self-doubt. So what does a great strength-based person like you and me do? We come up with strategies to attack self-doubt because we know it's there. What are some of those strategies? 1, get excited about little changes. Think about some of the behaviors you wrote to me about yesterday, oppositional behavior, refusal, this, that. What you want to do with kids like that is get really excited if they do a little bit better. You know, a kid won't clean the room, but they did a little bit better today with it. Oh my God, brother, slap me 5. Look at the way you cleaned your closet. I'm loving that. That's, you're turning the corner, brother, as opposed to, you know, your room's still a mess. Yeah, you did a little bit in the closet, but the room's still a mess. Come on. Or a kid is rude, you know, but he's a little less rude today. At the end of the day, John, I got to give you a big pat on the back. I really saw more self-control today. You know, sure, you made some bad choices during the day. This is a rough period, but there were times, like particularly right at dinner time when John did that, you kept your cool, brother. I'm liking that. I'm really liking that. I'm really excited. That's the strength-based way. We get excited about little changes. Little changes can ripple into big solutions. You pick up on the little things. My book, No Such Thing as a Bad Kid, that was a pain in the butt to rewrite. Took me 3 years, and I got ADD. So that was hard. But I'm telling you, the thing that motivated me the most, I think, were the anecdotes. Since 1998, when the original book came out, I've collected so many great anecdotes, myself and from others, of people and me using these strength-based stuff. One of my favorite anecdotes has to do with this principle: little changes can ripple into dramatic solutions. About 10 years ago, I put on my Facebook page, I have a business Facebook page, facebook.com/Charlie Training. And every summer I would put tips for educators. About 10 years ago, I put one of my favorites. I said, I want all you educators out there, you teachers, to go to Vistaprint, and I want you to buy like 500 postcards. You can design them with the Vistaprint people. They're great. Then on the first day of school, I want you to give 5 postcards to every kid, particularly your tougher kids, and tell them throughout the year, you're going to do some amazing work for me. Every now and then, you're going to blow me away. And when you do, I want to send a postcard home to your family, let them know what you did. So write down who you're living with: foster parent, grandparent, biological, whatever. You got 2 sets of parents, I'll give you 2 sets. Because I want them to know what you're doing when you do something special. They should hear about that. Think about a parent, maybe you, of a tough kid. When you see caller ID and it's the school, what are you thinking? Come on, tell me. You see caller ID and it's your kid's school, what are you thinking? Shoot, what do you do now? Oh, like crap. Like I can do anything? Most parents of troubled kids, they have PTSD, post-telephone stress disorder. They don't want to even pick up the phone because all they hear is, how bad the kid is. But let's take a parent of a tough kid. And next week, she gets a postcard from one of your kid's teachers, and it says, hey, Mrs. Rodriguez, I got to tell you, Juan had an amazing session to me online today. He wrote a creative writing assignment that blew me away. His vocabulary, his structure, his punctuation, his syntax, his creativity, it was off the charts. This was like a professional thing. I shared it online with some of the other teachers. They can't believe your kid wrote this. I think he could be a writer, And I just had to send this postcard home to you and Juan, telling how proud I am. The kid is amazing. That mother, she's going to look at that postcard and like do a double take. Like, is that really oh yeah, that's Mrs. Salt, yeah. Then she's going to cry. She's going to cry. It's probably the first time in her life someone like you took the effort, or a teacher, to send a beautiful postcard home about her kid. Then where's the postcard going to go? Tell me, where's that postcard going to go? On the chat board. She's going to take that postcard. Where is it going to go? Where is that postcard going to go? On the refrigerator. Now, every single time someone goes in that refrigerator, a little dopamine goes off, a little serotonin, a smile comes on people's face. And what do you think the odds are of that kid being oppositional in the next hour? Refusing to do something, doing drugs, running away. You just reduced it dramatically. When you do all the stuff I'm talking about today, kids connect. They don't want to misbehave. They don't like misbehaving. So I got this great email from a teacher named Dawn about 10 years ago around the postcard. She says, I thought about your idea for a few days and decided who doesn't like mail that says something positive. So I ordered postcards that I designed from Vistaprint, bought stamps, and started writing. I have to say that the feedback I've received has been fantastic. Parents have been emailing me, kids are coming up to me beaming, and thank you cards are being sent. One student who had been struggling now comes in early every morning to catch up on his work. I've got 10 emails from teachers who had kids not doing any work online, sent them a few postcards, and all of a sudden they turned it around. That's the power of the written word. I cannot stress to you how powerful the written word is. For some of these kids who are riddled with self-doubt, have such low self-esteem, when you have something written about how good they are, that's tangible. They can see it, they can touch it, it makes them feel good. It reminds me of it reminds them of the great relationships they had. I'm going to show you a little video clip right now. I got to warn you, you might cry, so you might want to get a few tissues. I cry every time I see it. Again, I'm going to ask you when it's over why I show it, but the hint is think about the power of the written word, particularly for a kid who's not believing himself. All right, here we go. About 3 or 4 minutes. That powerful or what? So speak to me. Why do I show this? You know, think about the kids you're working with, kids you're taking care of. Do they have something they can take out of their wallet where 10 people said, you know, you're so great and stuff? Well, they should. You should do what they did. Contact everybody who knows your kids. Have them write that. Have people do that. I always tell foster parents, people working residential, the first day a kid walks in your house, you should keep a scrapbook, a memory book of activities they did. If a social worker leaves who they like, get a nice picture of that social worker with the kid. These kids need written reminders that they're special. They just don't need a pat on the back. They need those memory books. They need those kind of things that she did. Your kids will be looking at that list the rest of their life when they're feeling lousy. I mean, I'm a pretty well-to-do guy. I mean, I'm a pretty healthy guy. You know, I'm sitting here at my desk, at my desktop. Over my desk is a big folder. Every time I get a nice email from somebody, says, hey, this worked, or hey, thank you, Charlie, for what you did, I copy it and I put it in that folder. And every now and then when I'm feeling down or someone's mad at me, I read a few of them. It makes me feel good. Ask yourself, what could your kids pick to make them feel good? You can help them with scrapbooks, memory books. If I were you, I would be giving their teachers postcards to send home like we talked about. You know, if you're a worker, you send a postcard to a kid. I'd be doing things like this nun did, this teacher did. You know, having people in a kid's life write something positive to them. Wow, what a difference that makes. You know, you want to get rid of behavior problems, get kids feeling good about themselves. Focus on what they do right. This is powerful stuff, powerful stuff. Oh, I'm not going to play it again. Now, what else do we do to attack self-doubt? Maybe use an incentive. You know, using rewards and incentives is a very debatable thing in our field. A lot of people say you shouldn't reward kids to do what they should be doing anyways. In fact, a bigwig named Pink wrote a great book years ago called Drive. And it's kind of the definitive book on why you shouldn't use incentives with kids. And I quote him in my new book. He says, incentives are like coffee. They produce a short-term boost, but then they wear off. What good is that? That's all I'm looking for. Many of the kids you're dealing with, or some of them have suffered trauma or are really cautious about trying things because they have such low self-esteem, and because of the trauma, they don't want to fail again. They don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to be hurt. So a lot of great kids who are struggling with self-doubt, who have had adverse histories, will not try things, do things because they're protecting themselves. They don't want to get hurt. They don't want to be embarrassed. Well, sometimes with a kid like that, and that's a lot of your kids, the right kind of incentive can get them to take a few baby steps. And then once they do and they feel healthy, they don't want the rewards anymore. I've had thousands of kids come up to me and say, I don't need the plan anymore. I'm feeling good now. The greatest reward for a troubled kid is to feel like a normal kid. Probably the most troubled kid I've ever been referred in my school consultation job was a 5th grader. He had serious mental health issues. In 3rd grade, he was in a self-contained classroom the whole year, a special classroom, and he had major mental health issues, didn't do any work, no reading or writing. At the end of 3rd grade, they had a big team meeting and they decided to put him in a residential school, like $100,000 to get him the help he needed. His mental health issues got better, but he did no reading or writing. At the end of 4th grade, they had another big meeting. They said, look, his mental health issues are a little better. He's still hurting, but they're better. They're manageable. He's still not reading or writing. Why don't we put him back in his local school? He will get an aide for $15,000. She can wander around with him all day. If he's not going to read or write, why do we have to spend all this money? So that's what they did. For 5th grade, they put him back in his local school with an aide. In November of that year, they called me about the kid, told me his history. They said, give it a shot. So I rushed over to the school. I found him in the library. He wasn't reading. He looked like a zombie. He was on 6 medications. He just wandered through the school like a zombie, followed by his aide. I happened to catch him in the library. So I went up to him. I says, hey, I'm Mr. Appelstein. The kids call me Mr. A. I'm going to be working with you this year. He says, I'm Josh. My teacher has a knife. She's going to cut my throat later. What's your favorite restaurant, Josh? He says, I like McDonald's. She also has a gun, might blow my brains out later. What do you like at McDonald's, Josh? He says, I like a Big Mac shake and fries, you know. So once I heard that, I said, wow. We're in the library, Josh. Now, he hasn't picked up a book in 3 or 4 years. I said, find me any book, Josh. Find me any book. Read me one sentence, just one, and I'll drop everything and drive 7 miles to the McDonald's on Needham Street and get you Big Mac shake and fries. He looked at me a little bit shocked, walked over, found a 2nd grade book, opened it up, and his finger was shaking violently. Took him 5 minutes. He read me a sentence. I stopped everything. I drove to McDonald's, got him a Big Mac shake and fries. By the end of the year, he was off all his medications and singing in the choir and had lots of friends. He was a totally different kid. Do you think that was a good investment? $9 on a Big Mac shake and fries. I could have saved that town $99,909 if they had hired me in 3rd or 4th grade. After a while, he didn't need the incentives anymore, but I needed something to get him to cross the barrier. Oftentimes, kids are like stuck. They can't move forward. So an incentive can get them to move forward. I'm not telling you to use incentives all the time. I'm telling a really good caregiver knows that every now and then that gifted kid in front of her is a little stuck, and maybe an incentive will get them to take those steps forward. And once they do, they don't want to go back. You know, there are some other ways I've used this. I've had a lot of kids, very traumatized kids, they won't read or write. So I have a road to reading chart. These might be 1 by 2 inch construction paper. So the green one, read with Mrs. B. So a kid just read for 10 seconds with an adult, gets a brick in the road. Any little effort towards reading and writing, they get a brick in the road. 6 bricks, they get some kind of incentives. I've had hundreds of kids who would stop reading and writing, start to read and write. They get the brick in the road. You can make it wavy. They get 12 bricks, they get a pizza, or they get extra time with you or something like that. You know, kids love seeing this get bigger and bigger. I've also had fun with the medium of exchange. For younger kids, you could take their picture, cut it into an oval, and tape it to a dollar bill. So a kid could earn Billy dollars, John dollars, Veronica dollars. That's what they call the medium of exchange, what they exchange for the reward. I've had people tell me the kid never did anything until you put their face on a dollar bill. You could put yours on a 5, it's so much fun. But I've literally had so many kids stuck. So you got to get any of those behaviors you emailed me yesterday. Give it a shot, maybe. First reframe it, be positive, try all the other stuff. But maybe they do a little bit better. They can get a Billy dollar, and then they can have a menu. They can trade it in. With older kids, I sometimes use like a raffle ticket. A lot of your older kids aren't doing the online reading and writing. I tell them, hey, why is learning important? May not seem like it now, but learning is your ticket to a good life. You can't get anywhere without a ticket. So every assignment you do, you're going to get a ticket. You get 10 tickets, you can trade them in for something. You can literally have a menu. I've literally had kids who are doing nothing, older kids really respond to the ticket. Because every now and then I'm walking with a kid, I go, learning is, and the kid has to say, my ticket to a great life. Back on track, Jack. Back on track, Jack. I love throwing these lines at these kids. So these are creative ways we've used incentives. I'm not saying to use them all the time. I'm saying them they should be in your bag of tricks. Because strength-based people know every kid is great. Every kid can make it. Sometimes they need something like this. Now, what else do we do to attack self-doubt? Change their thinking. Is it not true that anytime a kid acts out, you act out? Right before they act out, there's some bad thinking. I'm stupid, I can't do this, I suck, this will never change. No kid just acts out. There's always some bad thinking, informed by their life, by their history. So what a great caregiver, a social worker should be doing is changing that thinking boldly. I'm driving with a kid or working with a kid or playing a game with a kid. I go, what's a mistake? And they have to go, an opportunity to take. I'm going to say it to you. What's a mistake? Let me hear you. An opportunity to take. Hey guys, I'm taking an online course. I made a big mistake last night. Was I excited or what? What's a mistake? An opportunity to take. You come home, you're talking to a kid. Hey, did you make a mistake on your online course today? Did you make a mistake on one of your classes? Oh yeah. Wait, let me get grounded. More than one? Oh, I love that. What's a mistake? An opportunity to take. Hope you submit. Hey, homework tonight. I'm going to help you. Let's make some mistakes, brother. This kind of stuff should be hanging on your refrigerator. Should be in walls. They have schools, treatment centers, juvenile detention centers. We got this stuff everywhere. That's what I call an inculcation of positation. So many of your kids with low self-esteem, they make a mistake. They say, I suck, I'm stupid. That's because we're not helping them with that. Well, there's different things. What's a mistake? Chance to learn something new. And really, what's the current wisdom right now? The current wisdom is that for kids to be successful, it's not about being the brightest or the sharpest. It's about hard work and understanding that if you screw up, get up and try again. That a lot of the parenting experts say we've been mollifying kids. We've been like codifying kids. I mean, like being too nice to them. Like if they lose, oh, that's too, that's okay. You'll get it next time. Or that, no, kids have to hear that you don't always make the team. You don't always get the right grade. You do screw up. Get up and try again. Instead of holding their hand and soothing them. No, they have to learn it's okay to make mistakes. Get up and try again. It's all about hard work. If you get something wrong, try again. I love this. I'm working with kids and I'll yell at them, the harder I try, and they have to go, the higher I fly. The harder I try, let me hear you. The harder I try, the higher I fly. The harder I try, the higher I fly. Be the eagle. Be the eagle. Back on track, Jack. Back on track, Jack. Learning is my ticket to a great life. Learning is what's a mistake, an opportunity to take. I'm working with your kids, or you're at home with your kids, or you're doing online with your kids. Every now and then you throw out one of my lines. Oh, they love it. Harder I try, higher I fly. Be the eagle. Did you make a mistake in class today? I love that. What's a mistake? Opportunity to take. Back on track, Jack. You're just getting this. You're force feeding all this positivity and they don't want to act out anymore. Love this stuff. This should be hanging in every home, every school. And a lot of your kids can't handle winning and losing. Low self-esteem kids, they need to get this. Hey, you don't always win. If you lose, don't get the blues. And if you don't win, just grin. If you don't win, just grin. Hey guys, I was playing basketball at the Y last night. I lost. I started to get mad. Then I kept thinking, if you lose, don't you get the blues. And if you don't win, just grin. Yeah, I love that. Oh my God, people have been saying to me for like 40 years, doesn't it bug you dealing with acting out kids? I go, I don't mind acting out kids. I'm pretty used to it. In fact, I kind of like it because I know I can deal with it. I'll tell you what bugs me is acting out behavior I should have prevented. If I'm working with a school, a foster care agency, a treatment center, juvenile justice, and they're not getting this stuff, then I'm working harder. You're working harder. No kid should leave a foster home, any kind of school, without this stuff up the wazoo, on the walls, hearing it all the time. Back on track, Jack. What's a mistake? Opportunity to take. Learning is my ticket to a great life. If you lose, don't you get the blues. You know, and then if a kid does act out, remind them about this stuff. What were you thinking? What were you thinking right before that? You know, this is powerful stuff, you know, because why are your kids acting out? You know, it's not their talent, it's their thinking. So you got to work on that, change that thinking. I tell them, if it's thinking, change the thinking. If it's thinking, come on, let me hear you. Change the thinking. What were you thinking right before that? If you think about it, that's why kids act out. All those behaviors you throw at me again, oppositional, defiant, drugs, running away. There's always thinking right about that. There's always low self-esteem. There's always lack of hope. So this stuff, do this stuff, do this stuff. You know, where is it? Oh, I have a stuffed animal. Where'd it go? Where's Stinky? Oh, I forgot it. I bought a stuffed animal. I can't find him. Call him Stinky. You know, I give it to a kid. Hey, that was stinking thinking. That was stinking thinking. Now, you can also hang stuff like this. I'll send you these PowerPoints if you want them. I think this should be hanging on every wall. Michael Jordan said, I missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I failed over and over again in my life. That's why I succeed. Bingo, bingo. There's stuff like this, a dime a dozen on the internet. So why do we believe in kids? And how do we do that? We build great relationships. We attack self-doubt we know great kids have. You know, we do all these things we're talking about. And that we also understand that with self-doubt, oftentimes that's exacerbated because a lot of the kids you're dealing with have suffered some kind of trauma in their life. Sexual abuse, emotional abuse, or physical abuse, and it affects everything they do. Affects everything they do. Years ago, I read a great article by a guy named Larry Brentro, another guy named Broadhurst, and he wrote a great article about trauma, which has been so helpful to me and others. It was about trauma, the brain, and resistance, and they said something interesting. They said the human brain is like a library, it continually stores information. Kids remember everything that happened to them, and it affects everything they do. So when I first heard that metaphor, I immediately envisioned kids who suffered trauma as having wings of shame, wings of pain, wings of humiliation in the lower part of their brain, which Brentro calls the survival brain, which is overutilized for any kid who suffered trauma. And they're bursting with books, bursting with books. So when you ask a kid who suffered any kind of trauma to try something, to sign up for something, to do this, to see someone, no, that's stupid. They'd rather do video games all day. Why? Because what if I fail? What if I'm hurt? What if I'm embarrassed? As it says here, children traumatized by neglect and abuse overuse their more primitive brain systems. Their survival brain, which is like the lower, more protective part of the brain, are chronically stimulated and high risk of engaging behaviors would hurt themselves and others. You hear the term fear, fight, and flight, hypervigilant. This is the kind of kid, he's still having a good day, gets a bad text from a girlfriend, he blows. The kind of kid, he gets a bad, he blows. Littlest thing, he blows, because he can't really work it through. The kids who suffered trauma can't really work things through the way a high-functioning kid, because they're not using that part of their brain. Kids who have suffered any kind of trauma, they're down at the lower part of their brain. Fear, fight, and flight, hyperreactive. Tell me if this does not describe many of the kids you're dealing with who have suffered trauma. Many of these youngsters have not had the nurturance and learning experiences to fully develop brain pathways for self-control. Thus, their heightened impulsivity, frustration, and motor hyperactivity combined with an underdeveloped capacity to accurately perceive situations and problem solve. This unfortunate combination severely limits a child's ability to maximize his or her potential. Does that not describe a lot of the kids you're dealing with? So much of what you're dealing with is as much neurological as psychological. I think a great way to understand trauma is to go to Africa. I went on safari many years ago. Anybody know what elephants do when they sense danger? We could approach a herd of elephants over acres of land. As soon as they sense danger, they always do this. Anybody know? What do elephants do when they sense danger? Anybody? They gather, they do this. They get into the tight circle, they put the little children in the middle, big moms and dads man the perimeter, and they'll die in the circle. These elephants here, they won't take the path behind them to get to the water hole they need for hydration. They won't take the path on the right here to get to the more lush region of the jungle where there's a better food supply. And they're gonna die in this circle, protecting the young. This is a beautiful way to describe the human brain. This is the lower part of the brain, the survival brain, which is overutilized for any kid who suffered any kind of trauma. Your kids who've suffered trauma, they're not accessing the upper parts of the brain, which Brentral calls the logical brain, the emotional brain, which is all about critical thinking, problem solving, delayed gratification. See these pathways here as neural connections. What's supposed to happen in proper human development that happened with you and I? As we mature in good enough, safe, loving environments, we start to access these pathways to get to parts of the brain that help us live more advanced lives, which Brentral calls the logical brain, the emotional brain. And then those pathways, they kind of intersect, and that creates high-functioning people. Sadly, kids who suffer trauma, they're not using these pathways or what we would call neural connections. They're still down here, fear, fight, and flight. Prison is absolutely full of people who are traumatized. They're not using the parts of the brain they should that involve delayed gratification, empathy, perspective, problem solving, but they're still down here, fear, fight, night. You hear these guys in prison. Someone does something to me, I give it to them right back. So that's how they're wired. Sad reality is so much of the behavior you're dealing with every day is because of the trauma, because your kids are not accessing the upper parts of the brain the way they should. That's the bad news. Here's the good news. And it's really good news. As we continued on safari, every now and then we would come across a herd of elephants that would not get into the circle when they saw us. They'd see us coming, but still venture into the higher regions. Use existing pathways, create new pathways to live happier, more productive lives. What's the only reason that could be? Why would some elephants, when they saw us humans, not get into the circle? What could the only reason be that they didn't get into the circle when they saw us humans? Anybody got an answer? They decided you're not a threat. They knew we weren't a threat. They had met us before. Hey guys, humans are back. Dumbo, you can get your back washed, brother. Hey guys, humans. Literally, I'm going to go about 5 or 7 more minutes. Like I said, I like to go to the end. Emma was saying, should we stop now? No, I'm on a roll. I got some great stuff in the last 8 minutes. Yeah, and then I'll stick around for any questions. Those elephants loved us, you know. Bottom line, everything I'm telling you today, and so much more in my handout, my book, it's all about this circle, whether you're dealing with trauma. You want to create relationships, environments where every single kid wakes up every day going, this is the greatest darn place I've ever been. This is the greatest social work I've ever had. Never yells at me, says please and thank you, greets me with a big smile, focuses on what I do right, plays cool games with me, sends me notes, you know, sends me postcards, you know. I love this. I love the people in this house. I love my worker. I love myself. Literally everything I can tell you. And I could spend 20 more hours training you on stuff. But a lot of it is in the packet, so make sure you get the 50-page handout. It's all about this circle. When you use the strength-based stuff I'm talking about today, and I've given you a lot of stuff in a short time, you literally help kids expand the brain. They literally start doing stuff they never did before. What do we do with troubled kids, teenagers, years ago? We put them in boot camps. We used power to control them. It did nothing. It kept them right in the survival brain. They were still in fear. They were still angry. They're still nervous. And as soon as they were free, they went right back to acting out. Now, juvenile detention centers and people dealing with tough adolescents, they're using my stuff. They're using strength-based stuff. Brains are being developed, and the kids don't go back. Brentral writes, and I just love this. Neuroplasticity refers to the reality that the brain is malleable and therefore change throughout its existence. Here's my favorite sentence in the world. Positive and frequently occurring experience can create new neural pathways that enhance functioning and growth. This is the essence of the strength-based movement. Positive and frequently occurring experiences can create new neural pathways that enhance function, improve growth. You do the stuff I'm talking about today, the kids don't want to act up as much. Behavior starts to go away. As we finish today, we finished big. Maybe the number one reason you want to be so positive and inspirational with kids, despite everything I mentioned, relationships, attacking self-doubt, the trauma, maybe the number one reason you want to be so positive with kids, unflinchingly positive with kids, is that when you do, you give them hope. And hope is humanity's fuel. You could have a Mercedes-Benz outside your house. It's going nowhere if it doesn't have fuel. Strength-based practice says every kid you work with, you parent, is a Mercedes-Benz. But by the time they get to you, they're an empty. Your job is to put the fuel in. You know, kids need to go to bed every night with great thoughts, things they did successful, things they're going to do in the future, people they met, Sadly, a lot of your kids go to bed at night and they start a Rolodex and nothing good comes up. Strength-based practice is all about you and me getting into the Rolodex, giving them great experiences, successes, new ways of thinking about them, and really, really talking to them about the future. More and more is being written every day, and it's evidence-based about the need to talk to kids about their future. Garbarino, who I mentioned before, said that terminal thinking, the inability to articulate one's future, may be a clue to why some children succeed, others don't. I came up with a technique years ago. It's so cool. I call it positive predicting. I meet a kid for the first time. I do the train and no such thing. I do all this other stuff. Then I'll say to the kid, hey, this is the most acting out kid in the school. How should we celebrate in 6 weeks when you've had the best 6 weeks you've ever had? Pizza or Chinese food? Pizza or Chinese food? You know, so let's say the kid says pizza. I say, oh, good, I like pizza. Pepperoni or cheese? Kid says pepperoni, but I like cheese. Can we do half pepperoni, half cheese? Yeah, that's okay, the kid says. No, that's not okay. Here, you've had the best 6 months ever, 6 weeks, and I'm screwing up the celebration. You want pepperoni, going all pepperoni. Then a thick crust. Then, okay, I like that. No matter what the kid says, I argue. Because I want this kid walking. This is the most difficult kid in the school, and we're arguing about the celebration. Because I want this kid walking away thinking, this guy really thinks I'm going to have the greatest 6 weeks. You always want to talk about the future like it's a done deal. As it says here, when you talk about the future in positive terms, you make any desired outcome more possible. When it's more possible, it's more probable. You know, how are we going to, here, great question. These are all, by the way, you can have my PowerPoints. I think everything on the PowerPoints is in the handout, but I'll send these tomorrow because I got to clean them up a little bit. But these are questions you might ask right now. How are we going to celebrate when this ends, the pandemic, we get back to our normal life? What's the first restaurant we're going to go to when this is over? What are you going to be when you grow up? Tell me the top 3 colleges you like to attend. How should we celebrate? Boom, 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 boom. You always talk about the future like it's a done deal. You know, I have kids now, teachers and stuff. I love my new metaphor I created about a month ago is the book metaphor. I have kids do this assignment. You know, I tell them life is like a book. Your life is like a book. Right now, you're in the pandemic chapter. It's going to be one of the toughest but most interesting chapters of your life. But it's a really tough chapter. But it's going to be behind us, and you're going to have more great chapters in your life. So do this. I want you to write chapter 10 in the book of your life. Start with, I just turned 25 years old. My math teacher, so-and-so, sent me a great note on Facebook. Wow, have I come a long way. Finish the chapter. Write about your job, family plans, recent stuff. I cannot stress to you, and I could tell you anecdotes that would make you cry, how important it is to talk to kids about the future, you know, and maybe even argue, you know, who should we call when this happens? What are you going to do like that? It's so amazing. You can also have kids create business cards. Oh, I have so much fun with this. Every kid I work with, they have to create a business card. And I tell them, when you get your first, I'm going to keep these in a notebook. When you get your first business card, mail it back to me. I'm going to see if it signs up. What do you want kids looking at? The rules of the house, the rules of the school, or future leaders of California? You always put the cart before the horse. High school send me these. All the kids at a high school, tough high school, they create their business cards. You know, you could also go to any college. Go to any college and get the diploma and put college-bound kids. You always put the cart before the horse. It's hysterical. You know, I was doing a training at a tough place in Rhode Island years ago. I got an email from Victor Ortiz a week later. It says, Charlie, Victor here. At the time, Victor was running a group home of gang kids with conduct disorder. Really tough kids. He says, Charlie, my very first day back at the program, I hear a 250-pound gang kid punching walls in the back corner of the house. I walk in, the staff says, go talk to him, Victor, go talk to him. I said, I haven't been here in a week. I don't know what's going on. Victor, you're the director, go talk to him. I walk down, I look in his room, and he sees me, he says, Victor, get the F out of here. Get the F out of here. I'll break your effing neck too. And he turns around, punches the ball really hard. At that point, Victor says, oh man, what the hell? Why not try something new? So he breaks every rule in the de-escalation handbook, and he runs at the kid and he yells, hey! Now, if you know anything about de-escalation, the last thing you would ever do to a 250-pound gang kid who's punching walls is come at him fast. And so he comes at him and he goes, hey! And the kid was so shocked, he kind of froze for a millisecond, never thought Victor would come at him. At that point, Victor took 3 more steps, got right in the kid's face, said, how should we celebrate next week when you win the Kid of the Week award? Pizza or Chinese food? Kid goes, what the fuck? He turns around, starts to punch the wall, but his hand freezes. He looks back. He goes, well, I kind of like pizza. Victor says, pepperoni or cheese? Kid says, pepperoni. He says, but Victor says, but I like cheese. Can we do half and half? He goes, yeah. And finally, Victor gives in, and the kid sits down, wins the Kid of the Week award. It's hysterical. I could tell you stories that make you cry. You always want to talk about the future like it's a done deal. Okay, I'm finishing up now. I'm going to answer questions, but I just want to mention 2 things to you. One, I showed you my book, No Such Thing as a Bad Kid, which I'm proud of. It's 500 pages full of this faith-based stuff. For the next 24 hours, if you would like to purchase my book, signed copy without any shipping charges, you can purchase it at half price, $12.95 from my website. It's on the, I just put in the chat, nobadkid.com. I'll put it again, nobadkid.com. Nobadkid.com. If you want it for half price, $12.95, I changed the price for 24 hours. If you order it in the next 24 hours, I will sign it, ship it for free, and it'll only be half price. The other thing I wanted to mention quickly was next Wednesday, I'm doing a 2-hour webinar called Use the Force, Luke. Managing number 1 and staying motivated to do the job. It's all about managing the most important person in any interaction you have with the kid, and that's you. If you don't do well, the kids have no chance. So I talk about what do you do when you take things personal? What do you do when you're stressed out? And I have a lot of great verbal interventions. And I also end it with a really motivational concept for what the work we do that really pumps people up. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I contacted the host today. It's $29 to join, but for you people, it will be only $10. So if you want to come to my webinar, and you can find out this, you can read the whole thing at facebook.com/Charlie Training. But don't sign up, because I want you to have the discount. If you are interested in attending, send me an email, charlieap@comcast.net, and I will keep your name and then send you the host is creating a new form with a $10 discount. You just got to put the name of your agency here. So those are 2 things I want to mention. You get the book at half price, and you can come to the training, which is a lot of fun and very powerful. Managing yourself. That's a week from Wednesday from 9 to 11 your time. And if you're interested, just send me an email, and we'll send you a form or stuff like that. Okay, this was a lot of fun. I love talking about this stuff. I love what you guys do. You're my heroes working with these tough kids. I hope today helped. Again, the handout that you were sent is 50 pages full of this stuff. I'll stick around I'll just stick around right now for any questions you have. I was happy with what we got to today. I mean, this stuff really changes lives. So I appreciate the thank yous coming in. Thank you. You are absolutely welcome. You guys are amazing, especially given what's going on. Again, I'm putting my email down. You want to contact me, and if you want the book, there's, any particular questions, you can always email me a question or something like that. And so again, remember, when you're looking at individual behaviors, try to look at the big picture. Behaviors happening over here. Why is this kid acting out? How happy is this kid? What does the kid have going? What's your relationship with the kid? Do you need a little seeing is believing? This is why, I don't like to do radio interviews where someone says, oh, my kid's oppositional, or my kid's lying, or my kid's doing this. What should I do? Well, I don't know what's going on. By the way, one of my favorite techniques is what I call the millimeter acknowledgement. It's for kids who lie or won't tell the truth. I said, and so if I catch a kid in a lie, I say to, and this is in your handout, I said, is it slightly possible that perhaps by chance, what you just told me maybe is a little less correct than what could have maybe just possibly just happened, maybe? Kids will often give you, yeah, maybe I was a little less correct. Well, I don't blame you, boom, 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 boom. I love it. I get kids I don't even know to tell me stuff. Is there maybe a 1% chance that some of the off-track behavior today has maybe something a little to do with a visit tomorrow with your mother? Maybe just a 1% chance. They will give you 1%. If they give you 1%, they give the whole thing. So when kids lie, never use the L word. It's maybe a little less correct. Could you maybe just a little less correct? Everybody's a little, yeah, maybe. They give you that. They gave you the whole thing. So that's one of my favorite techniques for that, you know. So, all righty. So let me see here.
We did have some questions from earlier I can pose to you.
All right.
Is it okay? Should I go ahead and give you those?
Yeah, it's just that some of the questions might take a little longer, but you know, again, I'm talking about a kid who flies into tantrums. One of the things we always want to do when you have predictable behavior is we call that a pattern. You always look for patterns. So you don't want to wait for it to happen. What you want to do when kids have like tantruming at a certain time, with a slight, you know, what you want to say is, hey, you know what? You're a really, again, reframing. You're a really feeling person. You take your feelings seriously. And who can blame you, you know, because you've had some tough stuff. So every now and then, you know, when something happens, you get really upset. And who can blame you? That's a good thing. You're good at expressing your feelings. You know, but sometimes, you know, and that's important. I don't want you to hold them in. I want to know. And you've had some tough things, some bad breaks in your life. So I want you to let it out. And I'm proud of you for letting it out. Some kids hold it in, but sometimes you might be overdoing it a little bit, you know? So what are some strategies we could talk about? You know, maybe take a walk, this and that. You know, like if you Google zones of regulation, there's some beautiful strategies there about helping kids to check their body when they get upset and to come up with coping strategies and things like that. You know, you could also, I'm a big fan of self-talk, like let it go, Joe, things like that. You know, what's a mistake opportunity to take? So sometimes I might give a 7-year-old, when I get mad, don't do bad, just talk or walk. You know, whatever, something that applies to that. So if a kid is, you know, or I might use what's called externalizing a negative behavior and putting a name on it. So say a kid is prone to behavior fits. I said, you know, every now and then, again, I'm going to reframe the behavior. I'm glad you're good at expressing yourself. You don't hold it back, and I like that about you. I don't want you to hold it in. But sometimes you might be overdoing it. But you might be having what we call a fit, you know, which doesn't make you feel good or anybody. Why don't we call that behavior Mrs. Fitz? Every now and then you let Mrs. Fitz in, you know, and she goes crazy and she gets really mad, you know. Well, you know, I don't think we need Mrs. Fitz that much anymore. You can use your words to tell me and stuff. So I might have a little behavior chart with a 7-year-old that if she can go long periods of time not having Mrs. Fitz come by, you know. So again, I'm not saying I do that every time, but that's one technique I sometimes use. We take a negative behavior, we anticipate it, we put a name on it, then maybe have a little behavior chart, you know. But I also want to teach the kid to self-regulate, to watch their body, check their body and that kind of stuff. You might give them, again, more words to use to express themselves, but these are the kind of things I would do with a kid like that. What about teaching kids that some behavior is unacceptable? What about teaching consequences? Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, I'm not to say ignore behavior, but my focus is on the positive stuff. But, you know, and again, consequences. We should never punish a kid. We should only use consequences. Consequences are related to what a kid, a punishment isn't. In my packet, you'll see all these lovely consequences. You know, and then you talk to kids like, hey, it's not me against you. And you can even say to kids, you know, why do we have consequences, you know, as opposed to punishment? And by the way, what's the difference between a consequence and a punishment? A consequence is related to what the kid did. What's the whole reason that we use consequences? Consequences are to reinforce values. If you have a value in your house about respect, and then a kid is really being disrespectful, you issue a consequence to say, we take this seriously. Then the consequence needs to be related to what the kid did. You shouldn't, like, what are classic punishments? We take things away from kids that have nothing to do with their doing. We shouldn't be doing that. In your packet, I have 7 or 8 consequences that are related, that reinforce values. So that's what you talk to your kids about. If you make a bad choice here, you're a great kid, you make a bad choice, you get off track, you know, you might get a consequence. You might not. But the consequence is because we take that seriously. We value safety in this house. Running away isn't safe. Doing drugs is not safe. Being disrespectful doesn't make people feel good. So if you cross the line, sometimes there's a consequence. It's related to what you did. I might ask you to take a little break, come back when you're ready. No big deal. No big deal. How often should we use consequences? It's a great question. I think it's a case-by-case basis. I could never in a million years say, always use them, never use them. But I think if you have a kid who's kind of stuck, like around schoolwork right now, a lot of these kids are depressed, they're hopeless, school's kind of tough. I might use incentives to get a kid more motivated using the tickets and stuff like that. So my answer would probably be when you get a kid who's kind of really stuck, and understandably so, maybe an incentive or two to get the kid moving. But just be careful about relying on it too much. But again, I would use, especially around academics, because if you can reward a kid to start reading and writing, they're going to start feeling better about themselves, and they're not going to unlearn what they did. So that's why those incentives that I showed you around reading and writing, I kind of like those, especially during a pandemic. Because these kids are depressed, they're getting into that survival mode, so maybe an incentive will get them to take a few steps. So certainly during extreme times, if you have a kid with really extreme behavior that's really problematic, I might use an incentive, strong incentives, to get the kid to kind of stabilize, and then we'll wean the kid off it like that. Again, the thing with incentives, and it's in your packet, is you want to reward improvement. If a kid is acting out 90% of the day and he acts out 80%, he's getting something. You're not rewarding for perfection. You're just rewarding improvement, and that's what you're talking about. As I said, oh, I love, you had a much better day. Earned 5 tickets today. I'm loving that, man. I'm loving that, man. So where do you order the book? Someone just said, you order the book at my website, nobadkid.com. The next 24 hours, you can have it for half price, $12.95. It's almost 500 pages, and I'll pay the shipping, and I'll sign the book. If you're interested, again, in my training on managing yourself, which is a really motivational and very powerful training on how you manage yourself and de-escalate kids and how to feel great about what you're doing, just email me at charlieap@comcast.net, and I'll get your information, and we'll send you a order form because we had to change it for the $10 price. So you just email me if you're interested in that. Let's see what else you have here. Again, a lot of your questions are in my book, and stuff like that. Other activities you recommend that could be useful in juvenile corrections, because a lot of the activity material are not allowed. Obviously in juvenile detention centers, when I worked there, I played a lot of chess with the kids. We had a lot of reading stuff. We did computer stuff. I did bingo with the kids in detention centers, and I would tell the kid, whoever gets up and down wins a candy bar, and the kid on his left also wins. I want to make sure they all won so they felt good about themselves. So I do bingo. I do, like I said, we taught all the kids at one detention center to play chess. What a great game for adolescents. So chess, board games like that, card games. I would use a lot of card games with kids like that. A lot of reading material out there for them. Those are the kind of things we did at the detention center. Obviously getting them active. I played a lot of basketball. I played a lot of basketball with the kids at my juvenile detention center, but I changed the rules because only 7 of the 40 kids were really good at basketball. So I went to a staff meeting. I had taken over this place. I said, I want you to change the rules. We are changing the rules on basketball. From now on, no ball can be shot unless it's been passed 3 times. I said, the only way we're going to change this unit if it's all 40 kids wake up with a chance to be successful, not 7. Well, some of them bitch and moan, but lo and behold, within a week, kids have never played basketball, playing basketball. So this is what I said before about when you do activities with kids, you sometimes have to modify the games, the activities, so they have a better chance of success. So by changing the rules of basketball, they all wanted to play. Behavior started to improve dramatically because kids were good at basketball. And the bingo, kid on his left also wins. I modified that so everybody was a winner, Yeah, facebook.com/Charlie Training. If you go to facebook.com/Charlie Training, you can read a description of my training next Wednesday, but don't register because that'll be $39. If you email me, I'll send you a new registration form that will only charge you $10. So just email me at charlieap@comcast. It's at 9 to 11 a.m. Yep, 7:22. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's one of my favorite trainings because I've been telling people for a million years, what good is attending an Appelstein training if all I do is give you tools? Because what happens today, I give you a lot of tools, but as soon as you go back to the kids, if the kids tick you off, you might misuse them. So I really love when I can do longer trainings and then do an hour or two on how to use the tools I'm giving. So I talk about, next Wednesday, I'll be talking about what happens when you suffer self-esteem injuries, which we do all the time, how to respond. What happens when you're wearing down, how to respond instead of react. We talk about checking your baggage at the door. We talk about great ways to respond instead of react. You know, respond instead of react, which is really use the golden rule. We'll talk about very specific de-escalation strategies, verbal interventions. Finish up with a great metaphor on feeling good about the work. You know, because I think a lot of people judge their success with kids based on their behavior, on the kid's behavior. The kid's doing well, I feel good. I never, ever judge my success based on the behavior of the kids I'm working with. I like it if they do well. I get paid more. I feel good. That's not what I ask them. At the end of every day, when I play my day over my head, I never judge my success based on the behavior of the kids I was working with or my own kid. I ask myself one question every night. Did I behave well? Did I make every kid feel like $1 million? Did I use the strength-based stuff in a pretty good way? And if I did, I go to bed smiling. I know I increase the odds that tomorrow will be a better day. So that's part of next week too, is really getting you to feel good about what you're doing. Because you are the most important person in any interaction you have with a kid. If you don't do well, the kids have no chance. And it bothers me that we don't do enough of this kind of training. All these trainings out there, how to deal with kids, all these tools. What good are they if we misuse them, you know? Let me see. How often should we use incentives? It's really, here's the rule of thumb. The more difficult the kid is, the more you want to rate them, the more you want to pay them off. As kids start doing better, then you ease it up. If I have a kid totally out of control, maybe every hour I might give them a sticker or something. They can trade it in twice a day. As they start to do better, then we stretch it out. So, well, I think that's, do you have the book in Spanish? No, but I do have a Spanish handout. If you email me, a group in California, I think the California Parent Institute, someone translated my parent handout into Spanish. So I will actually send a copy to Emma, but if you email me at charlieap@comcast.net, I'll put that, I'll be happy to send that to you. I was so excited. I just got it a couple months ago. So it's Charlie A. So again, you email me for that. Oh, also, if you're working in this business and you're a supervisor, I have a trainer's manual, how to train people in this. I'll send that to you for nothing. So we're all in this together. So I'll be happy to send you my trainer's manual if you're in a supervisory position. So email me, you know. Also, if you visit my website, nobadkid.com, I've added a ton of new material over the last 2 months. Like these raps that I use, let it go, Joe, let it go, Joe. Just stay cool, no need to blow. I can't, I will, I gotta chill. And if I do, it's quite a thrill. If you get mad, don't do bad, just talk or walk. Make a list. It will, people asked about ADD yesterday. Make a list, it will assist. No need to groan, I can start on my own. Don't move all over the place. Sit and learn with a happy face. Step after step, that's the prep. Inch by inch, life's a cinch. Make a list, it will assist. I got a ton of these on my website. You got a kid with an issue, come up with a rap. I wish I had time to talk about it today. You don't do it when it's happening. You do it as pre-correction. You do it beforehand. But I've had kids change behavior dramatically by giving them a line in their head. And adults. I did a parent segment on a TV show a couple years ago. The weatherman approached me a week later. He said, Charlie, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I said, what? He says, I can't tell you the specifics, but as I was driving home last week after the show, this was the weatherman on the big channel. He's still on. Said, as I was driving home last week after the show, I kept saying to myself, if you talk in an angry tone, you'll live alone. If you talk in an angry tone, you'll live alone. He said, I had the best week with my family I've had in 3 years. 12 years later, he's still thanking me for that line. One line can literally change a whole life. Every night of my life, I'm ADD. I see it in my head. Make a list that will assist. I had a girl at a psychiatric hospital. She hadn't taken a shower in 3 months, 16-year-old girl, hadn't taken a shower in 3 months. I did a training on Monday there. On Thursday, I got an email from the director, says, Charlie, thanks for coming, it's already working. We have a 16-year-old girl who hadn't taken a shower in 3 months. We tried everything. Rewards, consequences, changed her medication, nothing worked. 3 of my staff that were at your training on Monday stood in front of a room this morning and chanted, "Don't be sour, take a shower. Don't be sour, take a shower." Kid laughed, jumped into the shower. I go back a year later, I said, "Did that really happen? I've been telling everybody around America, don't be sour, take a shower." Said, "Not only did it happen," said, "we forgot to tell you, she came up with it the night before." Then they go like this, I go, "What?" I said, "Forgot to tell you, she also came up with don't be a dope, use a soap. If you're a yeller, if you're a yeller, if now and then you yell at kids, go to YouTube and put in, don't, I'm gonna write down, go to YouTube and put in, don't yell, gently tell. Don't yell, gently tell." We've had over 10,000 hits. We created a video. A foster mother came up to me about 10 years ago and said, "I was at your training last year. Boy, did it make a difference." I said, "Well, what was going on?" She says, "I was the big yeller." "Oh yeah, I remember that. You told me about that." I said, "What'd you do?" She says, "Oh, I went home after your training last year, Charlie. I sat down with my 3 kids and we came up with don't yell, gently tell. Don't yell, gently tell. Don't yell, gently tell." She said, "I stopped yelling. And if I ever start to yell, the kids say, 'Mom, don't.'" And I got so excited, I created a video. I hired musicians, singers. It's a very long story. Created my own CD, Parent Rhapsody. But our big hit is don't yell, gently tell. I guarantee you, if you're a yeller, go to YouTube, put in don't yell, gently tell. Watch it 3 times, you won't yell anymore. But you'll hate me because the song is addictive. Will I post overseas to Europe? Someone just wrote. I think all of my stuff is accessible. I did a training last month for 30 teachers in Scotland. The night before, I Googled Scottish accent and I learned some Scottish words and watched a Sean Connery movie. So now and then I do the Europe stuff. So that's the beauty of this pandemic, sadly, is people like me can reach so many people. It's very cool. I get to talk to people all over the world. So it's very exciting. It's like, as you can see, I'm pretty passionate about this strength-based stuff. To me, it's like a religion. You know, I'm Jewish, but I love gospel music. Why? Because I have such passion for what we talked about today that it has a religious feel to it. So I think when I play gospel music, I'm connecting with the feeling I have about this stuff being so amazing. It's just, it's great. It's great. You know, I can't imagine doing anything else. And when you do the stuff that I'm talking about today, it makes you want to get up and see that kid. You don't focus so much on the behaviors, the mindset of the kid, getting that kid to feel good. Because the behavior starts to diminish when the kid starts feeling good. All right, so it's been a joy. I got to thank Emma if she's still out there. Emma, you still there? You still there, Emma?
Yeah.
All right, so can we have a round of applause for Emma? She hired me. She set this whole thing up. I'm going to say goodbye again. You can, like I said, I'd love to see some of you at my webinar next week for $10. Managing number 1, just email me, charlieap@comcast.net. You can read the description at Charlie Training, facebook.com, Charlie Training. And if you want the book, $12.95, half price in the next 24 hours, and I will sign it and mail it for free. So Emma, thank you. Thank all of you. Stay safe, everybody. Wear those masks. Keep doing what you're doing. Bye-bye.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. I just want to give a couple closing things.
Okay.
The questions. People were asking about certificates and the slides. And so, yes, those will be sent out by Friday in a follow-up email. Charlie said that he'll make the slides available, so I'll send those.
I will send the slides tomorrow to you, Emma.
Perfect. And then, yes, I'll send a certificate along with that. And then, yeah, just to reiterate, if you want to register for that training, email Charlie, charlieap@comcast.net. And thank you for being on today. And everyone have a great evening.
All right, bye-bye, everybody. Bye, Emma. This was great.